Justus.
Hi guys, good morning. Good morning. Thanks for joining us today to this session about the Sophos Firewall. This session it's about the firewall certification. Okay, you can find the certification in the Sophos Partner portal. The name is ET80 Sophos Firewall version 19.5. Okay, this is the engineer certification. It's really important that you can find it with this name in the Sophos Partner portal. Okay, we're gonna start with different. Let me see. Give me a moment, please. Okay, we're gonna see today different topics. This is the agenda course. We have an overview, deployment, start with firewalls, base firewall, network protection, site-to-site connections, authentication, web protection, application control, and other topics. Okay, the main topics, for today are the overview, deployment, getting a start, and the base firewall. This course is divided in 3 sessions. Okay, so the other 2 sessions will be about the other topics. Okay, so to start, we will see Sophos Firewall overview. Here, we will find a little bit about a firewall and how can offer here Sophos. Okay, so what is a Sophos Firewall? Sophos Firewall, it's a complete network secure appliance with a zone-based firewall and identity-based policy at its core. Okay, not these firewalls not only protect the wired networks, but as a wireless controller for Sophos access points, it can provide secure wireless protection and network protection functionality. Protection is provided through a single cloud-based platform, making day-to-day management of all your Sophos products, including these Sophos firewalls, easy and escapable. There are features especially designed to help universities, higher education, elementary or secondary educations overcome key challenges. For example, the powerful web filtering policies, uh, built-in policies for children's safety and compliance, and with Sophos firewalls and the SDREDs, you can connect sites across your geography distributed network. This works together with Sophos Central and Intercept X in real time. Therefore, when Sophos Firewall or Intercept X identities a threat, they work together to provide help and threat monitoring, lateral movement, as well as the synchronized security, synchronized application control, and synchronized user ID. And also, you can deploy it using pre-configured virtual machines in the cloud, where cloud servers can be protected, protecting them against the hacking attempts. So, what are we gonna see when we access to Sophos Firewall? The Sophos Firewall includes a comprehensive built-in reporting engine. Okay, so allowing you to easily drill down into reports to find information you need. It also provides comprehensive net generation firewall protection that exposes hidden risk, blocks unknown threats, and automatically responds to incidents. Okay, super visibility into risk activity, suspicious traffic, and obviously advanced threats helps you regain control of your network. The powerful of the net generation technologies such as the deep learning and intrusion prevention keep your organization secure in automatic threat response, instantly identities, and isolates compromised systems on your network and prevents threats from spreading. What we will see, okay? The control center. In the control center appears as soon you log in, okay? It provides a unique on-screen snapshot of the Selfie system health and status with its traffic light style indicators would immediately draw attention to what mattered most. And you can immediately see your top risk related to heartbeat, apps, laydowns, users, threats, websites, and attacks, obviously. Sophos Firewall scans the inbound and the outbound traffic, okay, the network traffic. For example, DNS requests, HTTPS requests, and AP package for sophisticated attacks using a comprehensive set of protection technologies. This includes powerful third-party protection, sandboxing, deep learning with artificial intelligence, the high performance APS, advanced protection against threats and botnets, and web protection with dual AB, JavaScript emulations, and SSL inspection. Everyone benefits more than 30 years of threat intelligence data from the Sophos labs. Okay, as you can hear, all the features. About the secure, the threats like Emotet and target ransomware such as Matrix and SimSam demonstrate the ways that the cyber criminals are constantly changing their techniques to effective effective and profitable. The next generation firewall advanced and Intercept X combined with synchronized security intelligence and easy management of all the products within Sophos Central are essential to maintaining the protection and responding quickly to any attacks. Okay, so as you know, one of the main features of Sophos firewalls and Sophos in general, Sophos is the synchronized security. So that means that all our my environment could be synchronized and help me to prevent the lateral movements. For example, between all the red. For example, if this computer, this host, is infected, the other will be the other devices of the red will be okay because Sophos Firewall prevents these lateral movements. Okay, so I'm gonna follow the TLS. This is important about the stream architecture, the Sophos. TLS inspection provides transparency on all encrypted network traffic. Deep learning against package threats is provided in a single engine for the antivirus, intrusion prevention, web protection, application control, and TLS inspection. The network fast path acceleration or AES, SEES or SAS, SD1, and cloud traffic such as the VoIP and video, and other trusted applications automatically or through defined policy. These are placed in the extreme architecture fastpath to optimize the performance. Traditionally, the cybersecurity has involved creating a security perimeter and trusting that everything within that perimeter is secure. This is vulnerable design as one attacker or unauthorized user against access to a network that individual has easy access to everything within the network, where they can progressively share for the key data and assets that are ultimately the target of their attacks. The key data and assets that are, sorry, the zero trust, it's relatively new and evolving approach to network design, but it's also part of a broader mindset based on the principle of trusting nothing and verifying everything. Okay, with zero trust, no user is trusted, whether on or off the network. The number of users, you can see here, the number of users who wants to work remotely and use their own personal devices to access corporate data and resources on trusted networks, such as those in coffee shops, is increasing. Using the SaaS applications, the cloud platforms, and service leaves some data outside the corporate perimeter. The use of public cloud platforms means that many of the devices or services that previously ran inside the corporate perimeter now run outside it. The principle of zero trust is to secure its device as if it were connected to the internet. CDNA, it's complementary to a firewall, just like the VPN. It's complementary to a firewall. Of course, the firewall continues to play a critical, important role in protecting the corporate network and data center assets from attacks, threats, and unauthorized access. CTNA adding is adding a granular controls and security for network, for cloud, or on-premise applications too. On the firewall side, the network segmentation or even microsegmentation around your users, devices, applications, networks provides one of the key benefits of the zero trust strategy. Dynamic policies are at the heart of Sophos Firewall, with multiple data sources available to leverage as part of a policy, the identity, time of day, network location, device status, network packet analysis, and more. All these different data resources can be used in different combinations depending on the scenario. As a key example, the server protection and the intercept X can be used to assign each device a health state. In case one is compromised, the device can be automatically isolated. The lateral motion or movement, okay, protection effectively provides an adaptive microsegmentation solution. Okay, so with lateral movement protection, each individual endpoint it's effectively on its own segmented, capable of isolation itself in response to an attacks or threats, regardless of network's topology. Okay, so the firewalls uniquely integrates the state of connected host into firewall rules, allowing you to automatically limit access to sensitive network resources from any compromised system until it is wiped. This is made possible by the synchronous security, which is our cross-wallet approach to analyze systems to and network activity depending to scenarios through the dynamic policies and automating complex tasks like isolation machines and more. So that's about a little bit of the firewalls and we have in our portfolio. About some features and an example of an attack firewall. Sorry, the Sophos firewall. We have different features. This is fully featured firewall and security appliance that can be used in many different scenarios. It can be placed at the edge of the network or in line. In other security devices, it can be single point of security for a network operating at the edge and providing multiple services, or use it to augment an existing deployment to provide services that other devices lack. Now we will see the protection features offered by the Sophos Firewall. To do this, we will show the techniques or the tactics and technologies of adversaries and how Sophos Firewall is able to stop the complex attacks in each phase on an attack. Be reviewing these techniques. You will gain better and more reliable understanding of Sophos availability to stop attackers' techniques in each of the phases. Guys, please give me a moment, please. Back. Okay, perfect. I'm here now. Okay, so the first part of the anatomy of a cyber attack is recognize and militarization. The hackers using start by passively investigating and collecting information about the target organization. For example, email address of key players in the organization, such as the CEOs and directors of companies. During passive, recognize the attacker is not touching your network or system, so there is nothing to detect. During activity, during the activity, recognize they can actively search for network range, IP address, and domain names using port scanners for finding information about the company being sold on the dark web. For example, the militarization is done on the attacker's device, so there's nothing to detect with Sophos Firewall. Now we come to the delivery stage. This stage of an attack is defined when the attacker can access your state through an attacker or an attack vector. For example, an email and deliver malware to a specific target. This is sometimes referred to as delivering an armed package to a target. The attackers can send emails to users asking them to click on a link or go to a website that is compromised. This is known as a phishing. Typically, in a phishing scan, you and many of your colleagues will receive an email that appears to come from a reputable organization and will sometimes include attachments that, if opened, you can infect a device. The attackers will use the social engineer techniques through social media, emails, phone calls, apps, text message, and in person to get people to reveal sensitive information. Typically, the tax is designed for some of the following purposes. For example, the phishing credit card account numbers and passwords, hack private emails and chat histories, hacking websites of companies or organizations and destroying their reputation, computer virus hoaxes, and combines users to execute malicious code. Many malware infections begin with a user visiting an specifically designed website that exploits one or more software vulnerabilities. This can be targeted by a user clicking on a link within an email or browsing the internet. This type of infections will occur in science. Okay, the genius um, websites can be compromised by attackers who place malicious ads on the sites. In other cases, the traffic of to the websites may be redirected to attacker servers, and the redirected site is designed to look authentic and usually ask for a username and password to log in. Okay, that's why it's important to have all the protection. And also, if you have a phishing protection, it's better as we have it in Sophos. Okay, so Sophos protects you to by scanning HTTP and HTTPS traffic for wanted content or malware. The web filtering provides predefined filters that automatically block access to categorized websites such as gambling or malicious websites. Um, we have different categories there. The live protection provides real-time search to Sophos Labs to check for threats and prevent them for infecting the device network. The protection against farming prevents users from being redirected to fake or compromised websites. The certificate validations validates the website certificate to ensure legitimacy. File type filtering is based on MIME type, extension, and active content types. This can be used to look micro enabled documents, for example, Safe Share Apps, which is a feature of Google Search that acts as an automated filter for pornography and potentially offensive content. The web protection feature is customizable, for example, restringing the browser quota of users and the access time allows you to control which users they can access and when. If you want to restrict your users from accessing websites that are not essential to the business, you can place a restriction in the web policy that blocks access to non-commercial sites, such, such as the social media, network sites, and other categories, okay? To prevent attacks, uh, sorry, to protect against email attacks, the email encryption and the control can be used. The email scanning engine will scan all incoming emails for malicious content. You control which emails can be receive, received on your network. IP reputation is enabled, allowing you to determine whether to accept, reject, or delete emails sent by known spammers. The file type detection is configured to scan and block specific file types. For example, you can block or quarantine any micro-enabled file from being received by any sender. The email scanning engine will also detect phishing URLs within the emails and block those emails accordingly. And in addition to scanning incoming and outgoing emails for malicious content, the email protection allows you to encrypt emails so you can send sensitive data securely outside your network. It uses SPX encryption for one-way message encryption and automatic receipt registration SPX password management. This encryption is simple and secure and requires no certificates or keys. It also allows users to add attachments to SPX secure replace to allow the users to send files securely. This email protections also or also uses our data loss prevention or DLP engine, which automatically scans emails and attachments for sensitive data. This is also a key benefit in the last stage of the attack that we will talk about later in our topics, okay? About the zero-day protection. The zero-day protections use a state-of-the-art sandboxing or the sandbox technology, okay, with built-in deep learning, providing to your organization with an extra layer of security against ransomware and target attacks. It integrates with the Sophos Firewall and it's delivered in the cloud. So now additional hardware is no additional hardware is required, okay? Is the best defense against the latest payload-based malware lurking in phishing, spam, and file below attacks. Um, so we can see how the zero-day protection test and identifies potential malware. The Sophos Firewall currently filters the traffic using all the conventional security checks, including the anti-malware signatures, the notepad URLs, so only never before seen suspicious files are sent to Sophos, ensuring minimal latency and end-user impact. If the file is executable, sorry, it's executable. See? So if the file is executable or has executable content, the file the file is treated as suspicious. So Sophos sends the hash of the file to Sophos to determine if it has been previously scanned. If the file has been previously scanned, Sophos passed the threat intelligence to the Sophos firewall. Here the file will either be delivered to the user's device or blocked depending on the information provided by the zero-day protection. And the Sophos Firewall maintains a local cache of file or the file hashes and results in a local base to prevent unnecessary search. Finally, the firewall uses the detailed intelligence provided by the zero-day protection to create the different reports on each threat incident. If the hash has not been seen before, a copy of the suspicious file is sent to Sophos. So here the file is executed and its behavior is monitored. Only or once the fully analyzed Sophos pass the threat intelligence to Sophos Firewall, which will determine whether the file is allowed or blocked. Among the layers of protection within our sandboxing, it's something called deep learning, which protects against the latest invisible advanced threats like ransomware, like I don't know, bots, crypto mining, worms, hacks, um, hackers, breaches, and advanced persistent threats without using signatures. The deep learning uses a set of algorithms that attempt to replicable they can a human brain would solve a problem by looking at the characteristics of an object. You decide what that object is. So the deep learning its model is trained on millions of known good and bad file samples. Some examples are shown there. So here, the characteristics are size, the compression, the settings, printable strings, vendor, etc. Of these files are tough and then tagged. The model is then trained to determine the characteristic of a file to create a learned model. When testing a file with this model, deep learning evaluates portable executable or PE files on a machine at execution time within the sandbox. The engine predicts whether the file is malicious or legitimate based on the characteristic of the file, which have been learned from the samples on which the model has been trained. The prediction is turned and the file is classified as malicious or legitimate. The application control works at several levels to help protect your network. The most obvious of which is to reduce the attack surface by controlling which applications are allowed. For example, users cannot download infected files through peer-to-peer application if you are blocking them. This application control can be used to block various types of applications, including unwanted applications. Some applications are not malicious and possibly useful in the right context, but they are not suitable for enterprise networks. For example, include adware, tools for managing PCs remotely, and scanners that identify vulnerabilities in the computer system. The peer-to-peer or P2P network applications can contain vulnerabilities and can also act as a servers and clients, meaning they can be more vulnerable to remote exploits. The high-risk applications, Sophos categorize all applications, which means you can enforce their high-risk application control policy and will block all applications categorized as high risk. For example, proxy and web storage application are often a high risk. And every high risk application, in the same way as for the high risk category, the very high risk category allows you to block all applications classified as very high risk. An example of this apps will be TOR proxy, Super VPN, and a apps VPN. On average, the 60% of application traffic is not identified. Static app signatures don't work for customs, obscure EVAC apps, or any app that uses generic HTTP or HTTPS synchronized application control in Sophos Firewall automatically identifies all unknown applications, allowing you to easy block applications you don't want to prioritize those you do. What this means is that you can now identify and deal with unknown threats and unwanted applications running on your network, putting the application, putting your organization at risk and impacting users' productivity. The users are still the easiest target of the attackers, as you know, but in an army of trained phishing, our employees can provide you with a human firewall against these threats. Okay, so the exploitation, which is defined by exploiting a vulnerability to execute code on a victim's machine and exploit, it's basically a method or tool used to abuse the software bugs or um, the nefarious purposes. For example, the firewalls includes the comprehensive web server protection, which is included with pre-configured templates to make protecting commonly used web servers such as the Microsoft Enhance as easy as possible. The web server protection acts as an reverse proxy that protects the web servers on the internal network or DMZ from incoming traffic. When the server protection uses a web application firewall or filtered traffic, hardened forms, bind cookies, and scan for malware, the web server protection can also authenticate incoming connection with a username and password even before they can reach the web server. The vulnerabilities and exploit kits can be protected against the use of the intrusion prevention system or the APS that this monitors network traffic as it passes through the firewall for malicious activity. It logs activities and attempts to block and prevent infection and then report activity. Please note that this intrusion prevention is not designed to replace applying software patches, okay, to fix the bugs and security vulnerabilities. This is really important. These attacks face the command and control is where install malware makes a connections to a command and control server, obviously. In a typical advanced persist uh, threat lifecycle, the communication with a command and control host is repeated process. This allows malware to adapt as the attacker against more knowledge. Some of the more complex malware like Emotet include communicating to remote servers for further instructions or updates or to upload or to load more firewalls. The Advanced Threat Protection monitors the global outbound traffic, blocks the outbound network traffic that attempts to reach malicious servers. This prevents remote access, Trojans from reporting to the malicious servers. If the ATP or the Advanced Threat Protection detects a threat, an alert will be logged and the number of the detection will be displayed in the control center. The administrator can then check the alert for additional information about the threat, such as the IP address of the affected devices, um, the host name of the affected devices, the threat and number of times the rule was triggered, and the user and the offensive process. This process allows the administrator to clean up the threat while the device is isolated, protecting the rest of the network from the infection. Okay, so this state of the attack varies depending on the type of malware. For example, a ransomware attack will seek to encrypt data and demand a ransom. Okay, while a spyware tends to record victims, keystrokes, and gain access to password or intellectual property. Next, we will review some of the protection components of Sophos Firewall that detects the malicious threats. The server protection and intercept X can be used to assign a health state to each device. In case a device is compromised, it can be automatically isolated, as I mentioned you, automatically isolated from other parts of the network at the firewall, as well as block network connection between other healthy devices. This limits the consequences of a breach of the spread of a malware or the lateral movement of an attacker. Even in the same broadcast domain or network segment where the firewall has not changed to block traffic, we are effectively bringing the application of isolations to endpoints so they can help the firewall isolate any threats and keep the network secure. This will stop any threats or attackers trying to move the lateral movements. I mentioned you before. So the email protection about this prevents data from leaking out of the organization via email. You can create data control list from the content control list. These CCLS are based on command types of financial and personally identifiable data such as credit card or social security numbers, post, or email address. When Sophos Firewall finds a match for the specified information, it applies the action specified the policy. The digital security and physical security have many parallels. Okay, so think about a building and how it could be protected. If you were to build something but again wall, it may prove difficult to climb, but eventually someone will find a way to overcome it or under it. Now let's consider an stretch. Armed guards attack dogs, for example, CCTV, tripwire, um, I don't know, barbed wire, motion sensors. It may be possible to jump the wall, but you still have many additional obstacles ahead. Individual layers are easy to build, but they are also easy to skip. Our global or goal has always been to build a stretch so that multiple security elements are present to detect movement through assets and for attacks to be detected and stopped. So, about the deployment. How can we deploy the Sophos firewalls? The firewalls can be deployed in four ways, okay? So, as a hardware device, the XCS and NextC devices come preloaded and ready to go. A software installed on Intel uh, compatible hardware as a virtual appliance running on the most common hypervisors, including VMware Citrix Hypervisor and Microsoft Hyper-V and Key VM. And finally, Sophos can be deployed in the cloud on Azure, Amazon Web Services, and then Nutanix ecosystem. No matter how you choose the deployment of a firewall, it uses the same software and provides the same functionality regardless of the form factor. Okay, this is important and it's a question of the certification. Please keep in mind. Okay, the XCS series of appliance for Sophos Firewall provides excellent performance and protection, a smart and efficient traffic handling, frees up resources for intensive tasks such as TLS inspections, and this is possible with dual processor architecture, okay, which pairs a multi-core CPU with a dedicated extreme flow processor for hardware acceleration. The XGS series includes a wide range of integrated and additional connectivity options, providing the flexibility to adapt the most environments. Each unit of the XGS series contain, contains a 64-bit CPU with system memory, as well as an extreme extreme stream processor, also known as a network processing unit or NPU, with its own memory. In addition to the fixed network ports, which increase with the drive model, there are optional modules that provide flexible options for expanding the selection of network ports. The XGS series includes support for PoE or Power Internet ports and fail to wire, which can allow traffic to pass through the unit of power is lost. Fail to wire PoE can be available both on board and with add-on models depending on the drive model. The XGS series units can or come in 5 variants. The desktops models, which without integrated wireless connection, 1 unit server rack models, such as short or long appliances with low end models around 10 cm less deep, and 2 server rack models. And all 1 unit and 2 unit models come with a rack mount wings and include rails or half rails as an option. For desktop models, the rack mount wings are optional, okay? Depending what are the needs of the customers. All desktop models are available with and without built-in wireless and come with a single power supply. All desktop models except the XGS 85 have the option of connecting a second power supply. Okay, this is important. An optional user replaceable 3G or 4G LTE model is available for the XGS series desktop units, except the XGS 87 and the XGS 107. Okay, all the wireless desktops models have a single dual band. One, sorry, the 802.11 ABGN and AC radio. As there is only one radio, this can only transmit to 0.4 gigahertz or 5 gigahertz. Both still simultaneously occur. So all the XGS have the option of a second wireless module. Okay, except the XGS 87 and 107, which is dual band. This is important, and this addition allows the device to transmit in 2.4 gigahertz and 5 gigahertz bands simultaneously and provides better coverage. All the XGS 1 unit appliance includes an Internet management port that allows you to connect to the web app MIN on HTTPS 10.0.1.1.4444. Okay, all 1 unit devices have an optional external power supply that can be mounted on the back of the unit, so as not to take up additional rack space, except the XGS 4500, okay, which has an additional hot swappable internal power supply. 1 unit devices are also include 1 or 2 flexi-port bays. This is important too. And the larger XGS series of 2 drivers include hardware RAID storage, 2 flexi-port bays, and 2 hot swappable internal power supplies. These drives also include one or two NIC expansion bays, which can be used to add a module. And here you can see the FlexiPorts modules that are available for 1 unit and 2 units. Apart from the 4 ports PoE 2.5 gigabit Ethernet, which is only available for the 1 unit models. There are FlexiPorts modules are available only for 2 unit devices like the 8 port 10 gigabits Ethernet as SFP Plus, 2 ports 10 gigabits Ethernet, and 4 ports 10 gigabits Ethernet SFP Plus fiber bypass, 2 ports 40 gigabits Ethernet Q Q let me see here QSFP Plus. In addition, there is PSDL SFP for all models that allows you to connect a DSL model via the SFP. Please note that the FlexiPorts models are not hot swappable and require the device to be turned off to install. Sophos Firewall support patch capable for 40 gigabits interfaces, splitting them into 10 gigabits interfaces using the DACS or favored path capable. Cables. It is important to install Sophos Firewall on one of the supported virtualization platforms and its tested version are listened into online guild. These platforms have been tested and are now to work with Sophos Firewall operating system. Please see some of the most common ways Sophos Firewall is deployed. The most common scenario is when you're looking to replace an old firewall and need to protect your internal network. Sophos Firewall is deployed to manage both primary routing and the first line of the defense against network threats. This is shown here with Sophos Firewall in gateway mode. The port 8 is configured for the LAN zone. The port B, it's the one, and the port C for the DMZ. Any network threats that try to go to the LAN or DMZ zone will be stopped by the firewall. This is a type of implementation. We will focus on it this course. Another common type of deploying is when there is an existing firewall handling one connectivity that is not going to be replaced. This is often done to add additional protection capabilities not offered by the existing firewall, so that you don't have to change the IP address is seen of your network. The Sophos firewall can be deployed in a bridge mode, which is also known as a transparent mode or only mode. In this mode, the network clients are not aware of Sophos firewall, and traffic passes through changing the IP address, but it still allows Sophos firewall to share for and protect it against threats. The firewalls Sophos can also be added to one network to protect web applications. There are often many components that make up a web application, including the web servers, the databases, file servers, etc. But this means that there is also a wide range of attacks that can be launched against them. In the example here, Sophos Firewall can protect web applications from common attacks, including buffer overflows and SQL injection. The last type of deployment we'll look at the typically used to evaluate the capabilities of Sophos Firewall without requiring any network change. In this example, Sophos Firewall is connected to a switch port that has port mirroring enabled. So a copy of all traffic sent to Sophos Firewall is sent to Sophos Firewall. While the firewall cannot influence live traffic on the network, it can log and report on what it's seeing. And from this, you can see the additional protection it can add to the network. This is called that like a discovery mode. Okay, so this is about using the initial setup wizard. To configure the Sophos firewall, you must start by connecting to power. Okay, this is the first step. Connect to power and then connecting the LAN port and the WAN port. On XGS series and NextG series hardware firewalls, the default LAN and WAN LAN ports will be checked. In the software and virtual Sophos firewall, this will be the first and second network cards. You will have the option to modify these ports during initial setup or once setup is complete. Although Sophos Firewall is managed through a web interface, it also has a command line interface that can be accessed via the SSH, a console connection, or you can use a monitor and keyboard to physically connect to the terminal. You may want to use the CLA to change the IP address or the management port to be in your LAN IP range so that you can connect to the web admin to complete the initial setup wizard. To log into the CLA, use the password of the built-in admin user. The default administrator password is admin, and change this as part of the initial installation wizard. In the slide notes, you can find the parameters of a console connection, as you can see it here. The default credentials, username, admin, password, admin. These credentials are changed as part of the initial setup wizard, as I mentioned you before. Sophos Firewall is configured and managed through a web interface. By default, the IP address of the appliance will be this, okay? This address, 172.16.16.16/24, okay? Port 444 and admin URL is this one, device IP 4444, okay? So you will receive a certificate error when connecting to Sophos Firewall because it is using an untrusted self-signed certificate. So now we will look at the initial configuration on the Sophos Firewall. On the first page, set a new administrator password and accept the terms and conditions. If you are configuring the firewall on behalf of someone else, you must agree to the terms and conditions. By default, Sophos Firewall will download and install the latest firmware as part of the initial setup. However, you can deselect it to postpone it until later. You also have the option to restore the backup of your configuration or or connect the Sophos Firewall as an auxiliary device to hide availability pair. Both options will provide a different initial configurations that the full ones we're going to show here. Sophos Firewall requires an internet connection to register, and it selects to download the latest framework. You can choose on which port to configure the one connection when you need to specify the IP address, subnet, DNS server, and gateway. When you save these settings, Sophos Firewall will test the connectivity and will allow you to continue with the initial configuration. If the one port is connected to a network that provides um, DHCP, these steps will be skipped. Okay? And you can enter a fully qualified hostname for your Sophos firewall, which can be the internal or external hostname of the firewall. However, in most scenarios, we recommend using the internal hostname. Okay, optionally, you can modify the select time zone automatically. The next step is to register the Sophos firewall. Okay, if you have a serial number, you can enter it to register your firewall. On XDS and XC series devices, it will be pre-populated. You also have the option to migrate an existing UTM license, start a trial, or defer registration for TD dates. Deferring registration can be useful if you are preparing a soft firewall before bringing it on site. It is worth noting that when the registration is deferred, there are several features that you cannot use. To complete the registration, you must sign it with your Sophos ID, and then Sophos Firewall will synchronize the license. You have the options to configure the local network settings, which are different depending on whether you are deploying a hardware, virtual, or software Sophos Firewall. We'll start by looking at hardware device. Here you can select which port to use for the LAN. All selected ports will be used to create a single bridge LAN interface. You can select the gateway so that the LAN is Sophos Firewall or an existing gateway, in which case the LAN will connect to the one. You can configure the IP address for Sophos Firewall and optionally enable the DHCP. Note here that the DHCP cannot be enabled if Sophos Firewall is connected or is connecting the LAN and the WAN. For virtual and software appliance, the configuration is very similar, except that instead of selecting ports to create the LAN bringing interface, select a single LAN port. That's the only difference. Okay, so the last piece of the configuration is for notification and backup. Here you can configure the email address of recipients and senders for notifications. Optionally, you can choose the setup and internal email server to send them. You can also enable automatic backups, and to use them, you must set an encryption password for the backup files. When you log on the firewall for the first time, after the installations, you are prompted to create a secure store master key. The secure store master key is used to provide additional protection for account and password details stored on the device and in configuration backups. Once you have set the master key, you won't be able to retrieve it, so the settings ask you to confirm that you have stored it in a password manager or other secure place. If you lose the secure stored master key, you will not be able to restore the backup or configuration created with that key. Okay, so it's important to have this this knowledge. Although the storage master key cannot be recovered, so it can be restored. It is done through a command line using the default super administrator account. Log into the Sophos Firewall console as an administrator and choose option 2 for system settings, and then option 5 to reset the secured store master key, as you can see it here in the presentation. Okay, so we finish with the two first um, topics of this course. Okay, so let me see. Okay, so we're gonna start with the getting started with Sophos Firewall. So what we have here in getting started, when you first log in to the web admin, you are presented with the control center, which provides a live view of what's happening in the Sophos Firewall and allows you to quickly identify anything that requires your attention. The control center is divided into six main areas. The system, which displays the status of the firewall and services. Sorry, each item can be clicked for more detailed information. The traffic information, which provides an at a glance overview of what is happening on the network and the traffic being processed. Users and device information here to understand the status of users and devices protected by the Sophos Firewall. This section includes the user threat quotient, quotient, which is a risk assessment for of users based on their behavior. An active firewall rules displays, you can see here, that displays the use of firewall rules by type. Below the graph, you can see the status of the firewall rules in the last 24 hours. And clicking this will take you to the firewall rule filtering for the selected rule type. And also the reports. See here, that provides access to commonly used reports. This can be opened by clicking on the name of the report or below it using the icon on the right of each. Okay, as you can see, let me show you. As you can see here, okay, to load it and shows when the report was last updated at the side of the file, and messages, here messages, which displays alerts or information for the administrator, including security warnings and new framework updates. The messages can be clicked to access the responding settings. On the left side is the main menu of navigating Sophos Firewall. This is divided into different um, parts. The first one is monitor and analysis, provides access to information about current activity, the Sophos reports and diagnostics tools. Then protection to configure rules, policies, and settings related to protection firewalls. The configure part, when you configure connectivity, routing, authentication, and global settings. System, which houses devices access settings as well as objects and provides that are used within rules and policies. Each section accessible from the main menu is divided into tabs to access each configuration area, okay, obviously, and some screens, additional leisure use tabs can be accessed using the ellipses on the right side of the tabs. The report sections, there is an additional option that is show report settings, okay, which allows you to access some of the leisure users options. When the settings are accessed, the screen will switch to the additional options. You can identify when you are on the screen because the title board at the top of the page will be yellow. At the top right is the administrator menu. Here you can restore, show down, look and log out of Sophos Firewall. This menu also provides links to the support website, the Sophos Firewall license page, and the web-based access to the console. A contextual link to the online help file is located in all Sophos Firewall screens. When clicking on a separate Windows opens, this online version of the help is fully integrative and can be navigated by selecting a various menus items from the left side menu. It can also be shared using the keywords when a shared result is selected, and the responding selection will be allowed within the help file. Next to the help link is the log viewer, which opened in a new window to provide access to all logs files. In the log viewer, you can filter the logs and perform context-sensitive actions. Other chapters of the course will explore on this more in detail, okay? Clicking on the web manager, show the how to guides links will take you to the Sophos community page. This provides links to a library of videos that show how to perform common tasks in the Sophos firewall, okay, and how you can deploy it too. Sophos firewall uses objects as building blocks for configuring rules and policies by defining reusable objects once for things like hosts, services, and networks. You can speed up configuration and simplify the configured changes by having a single place to make a change. The objects can be created and edited in advanced, but they can also be created online when configuring protection features. This means you don't have to navigate outside of what you are setting up to create an object because you will have the option to create it wherever you need it. There are two categories of options, host and services, and the profiles. This can be found in the system section of the firewalls. There are three types of host objects in Sophos Firewall, the IP, the MAC, and FQDN. Okay? The IP host objects can represent a single IP address, a subnet, an IP address range, or an IP address list for IPv4 or IPv6. The object has a name and then must be configured by the version, the IP version, IPv4 or IPv6, and the type. Note that the IP version and type cannot be modified after the object is created. Next, provide the data for the selected object type. Note here that the IP address lists are separated by commands, and the IP host groups can be used to group IP host objects for IP address, networks, and IP range, but not IP lists. Okay? The MAC host objects can be created for individual MAC address or list of MAC addresses. The MAC host object has a name and must then be configured for a specific type, either MAC address or MAC list. This cannot be changed once the object has created. The MAC address lists are separated by commas too. Okay? As you can see it on the example. Let me show you. You can see it here. Okay? By a comma. The FQDN hosts are used to define fully qualified domain names. Okay? These host objects can include a wildcard prefix for resolving subdomains, for example, sophos.com. These FQDN host groups allows you to create a collection of FQDN host objects to further simplify the use of objects in rules and policies. Service objects can be created to TCP and UDP based on control, source, port, and destination, AP based on protocol number, ICMP and ICMP v4, v6, based on ICMP type and code, and each service object is for a single type and can contain one or more definitions. You can also create groups and service objects too. The firewall maintains a database of geographic IPs that maps IP address to countries, and this is automatically updated with pattern definitions. There are several predefined country groups that ship with Sophos Firewall. which can be edited and can also create custom country groups. The profiles are a collection of options that you can define and use when configuring protection features. There are profiles for a schedule, which defines a period whether occurring on one time, the access time, that which defines an allow a deny action for a schedule, the browsing quota, which defines recurring or one-time restriction for browsing time, the network traffic quota for upload and download, bandwidth quota restrictions, decryption to control the decryption of TLS traffic, IPsec to specify internet key exchange parameters for tunneling the between two firewalls, and the device access, which define access roles for administrators who log on the web admin. This firewall has two framework slots, one for the current active framework and the other that can be updated with a new version. This means that if a problem is found in the running firewall framework, the previous version can be booted, okay? The framework can be downloaded automatically or loaded manually when there is a new framework version. You will be prompted to update when you log in. In addition to logging a new framework, you can select which framework version to boot or choose to boot one of the framework version with the factory default settings. The framework updates require a valid support license. For devices that do not have a valid support license applied, a banner will be displayed on the framework page showing the number of free framework updates left. There are three free framework updates are provided and mandatory updates that are installed as part of the initial setup wizard do not count towards this, and patterns updates are not affected by this change. About the zones and interfaces, firewall, the firewall ships with physical and virtual interfaces. A physical interface, for example, port 1, port 8, or Ethernet 0. A virtual interface is a logical presentation of an interface, such as an alias that allows you to bind multiple IP addresses to single physical interface. A zone is grouping of interfaces when used with a firewall rules. Zones provide a convention method for managing security and traffic for a group of interfaces. So we will start looking the zones. Firewall is zone-based firewall. Sophos Firewall is a zone-based firewall. So, and it's important to understand that a zone is before you proceed to view interfaces and routing. When we talk about zones, Sophos Firewall, we mean a logical group of networks where traffic originates or is intended. Each interface is associated with a single zone, which means that the traffic can be managed between the zones rather than through an interface or network, simplifying the configuration. The interface and zones are not equivalent, so multiple interfaces can be associated with a zone, and each zone can be consist of multiple networks. Sophos Firewall comes with five default zones. These are the LAN, WAN, DMZ, and VPN. One is the most secure zone by default and is for your internal networks. One is used for external interfaces that provide internal access. And the DMZ, it's a zone that is in another server in the public access. Okay? The VPN, it's the only zone that doesn't have a physical port or an interface assigned. Okay, so when you assign a VPN uh, site to site or the remote access, the connection will be dynamic to the zone and delayed when this is connected. And then another zone that is the Wi-Fi to have the security of the network. Okay, so something important here is these zones are created, managing, and configured network and zones. An exception is that an exception of the VM, the other default zones can be configured. Okay, but the VPN not. So you will see, or we will see how can create your own zones. When you create a custom zone, you can choose between two types of zones, LAN or DMZ, which is used to indicate the trust level of the zone. You cannot create additional VPN or WAN zones because there can only be one of each. Next, customize the zones to define which services Sophos Firewall provides and will be accessible. This falls into four categories: the administration services to access and manage the Sophos Firewall, the authentication services for user authentication, the network service for PIN and DNC, and other services which control access to things like the web proxy, wireless access, point management, and user portal. Now that you uh, know how to create zones, we'll look at the network interfaces. By default, the interfaces are named after their hardware device ID. Okay? So, however, you can give them um, a descriptive name to make them easier to identify. To begin configuring network settings, you must assign the interface to a zone. This will determine which IP configurations can be set, as only interfaces in the one zone are configured with a gateway. You can configure interfaces statically or by using DHCP. The IPv4 configuration also supports configurations through the PPPoE. Okay, you can configure interfaces with the IPv4 or IPv6 or both. This is necessary. In addition to this use, configure the network adapters in Sophos Central, Sophos Firewall, sorry. Other interface types can be created. These are the bridge that allows you two or more interfaces to be used to create transparent layer 2 or 3 printed. The alias, the VLAN, the WASP, and the red. We will look at two examples of these interfaces. The first is a bridge interface links, that links physical interfaces such as ports or virtual interfaces such as the VLANs. In these examples, two physical interfaces are selected. If enable routing is selected, you must assign the IP address to the bridge interface. An alias interface is used to blend multiple IP addresses to a physical interface. In this example, an alias is added to the guest IP interface and viewed on the interface listing page. In addition, you can create wireless interfaces and IPsec interfaces. These two interfaces types are created as part of a configuring other features in the firewalls. The IPsec VPN and the wireless network using a separate zone configuration. Tunnel interfaces are created using an IPsec VPN type that allows you to use standard routing to send a static through the VPN. And the Wi-Fi interface are created when wireless network routes traffic back to the Sophos firewall using a separate zone configuration, rather than the physical LAN to which the access point is connected or to a VLAN. So now we will see the routing and there's the one that are important for us. Okay, when Sophos firewall receives traffic, it needs to know where to send it so that it reaches its destination. If the traffic is designated to a network to which Sophos firewall is connected, it would know where to send it, okay? Everything else will be sent to the default route, which is usually your ASP or internet server provider. If the traffic is designated to for a network that is not directly connected to the Sophos firewall, by default, it will know where to send it, so it will be sent to the default route. In the example shown here, we will have a create or to create a route in the Sophos firewall, so that is knows how to send traffic designed to the network indirectly connected to the gateway of that network. There are three types of configurable routes you can create in Sophos Firewall. The static route, these are the sample types of routes that send traffic to a specific gateway, okay, based on the destination. The SD1 routes, um, these can route traffic based on more attributes, including resources, service, application, and users. This can route to a specific gateway or backup. gateway based on a health monitoring. Alternatively, you can use a profile to select a gateway based on quality or load balancing metrics. And the dynamic routes, these are routes that are learned by communicating with other routing devices on the network. So, in this example, this is an example of a static unicast path. These are created in configure routing and then an static route. Enter the network and the net mask, as you can see here, of the destination traffic that will match these routes. And in this example, any traffic to this IP address will match. Enter the IP address of the gateway to which you want to send the traffic and select the port on which you want to send the traffic. Okay? Destination gateway interface. That's it. For each static route, you can also set the administrative distance and metric to send the relative priority. The administrative distance is used to compare distances between routing protocols. For example, the administrative distance for OSPF is the shortest distance learned for a route. The metric is used to route selection between static routes. To configure the SD-WAN, you must start by creating a gateway to which you will send traffic. This is done by configuring, go to configure, routing, and gateways. On this page, you can see all your gateways. Both the ones will be added here and the gateways configured for WAN interfaces. When you add a gateway, start by specifying the IP address, the interface on which it can be accessed, and optionally the zone in which it is located. Further down the page, you can configure the health monitoring for the gateway. This will be populated with the IP address on the gateway by default, but can be customized to use a host access through the gateway. You may need to do this if the gateway does not respond to the ping or the TCP request for the firewall. These SD-WAN are configured in two sections, okay? Traffic sector, which define which traffic to match for the route, and the link section configuration, which is used to determine the gateway to use. The SD-WAN routes provide a much wider range of traffic selection criteria. So you can select the traffic you want to route based on the interface on which you arrive, the Sophos Firewall, source and destination networks, the service, the DS, the making, user, and application. In the link section settings section, you can choose between using SD-WAN profile, which will be covered shortly on a primary profile and backup gateway. The SD-WAN route will use the health state of the gateway to provide which of the gateways to use, preferring the primary gateway when available of if you always want traffic to be routed through a specific gateway and no other. You can optionally enable the route only through specific gateways. This means that the routing will not fail over to an alternative gateway even if it is available. The routes are processed in order of presence or precedence. Okay, by default, these are health check routes first, then static routes, SD1 routes, VPN routes, and finally the default routes. Health checks routes always take preset, precedence because routing traffic to check the status of the gateway must be performed independently of the configured route. The default route it's the gateway delivered from the load balancing configuration on the active gateways. The presence of the routes, the SD1 routes, the VPN routes, and the static routes can be modified on the command line. However, winning as a static route depends on the route specific and distance matrix. Metric. At the top of the one route, um, the current route priority is displayed. This can be checked and modified via the console using the system route precedence command. Something important, Sophos Firewall supports environments with multiple ones connections. When you add one connection in Sophos Firewall, you must specify a gateway and then you can use the one links manager to configure how the one connections are used. The one gateways can be configured as an active or backup. When multiple gateways are active, the firewalls will load balance traffic between them. When a gateway has been configured as a backup, it would only be activated based on the configuration of this page. This could be manually or if applicable or a specific gateway fails. When a backup gateway is activated, it can inherit the weight of the gateway. It is replacing on your manually set the weight and it will be given. Okay? The other one profiles provide a link management that allows you to define routing strategies across multiple gateways. The use of SD1 profiles enables smooth and efficient traffic routing and rerouting based on link performance and stability, optimizing the network performance and ensuring continuity. For example, if you have multiple ASP connections, you can use SD1 profiles and policy routing to ensure that the business critical applications always use the best link. Alternatively, you can choose to load balance traffic across multiple connections and use the SLA to determine which connection to use. These SD1 profiles are managed in the configure port, routing, and start by selecting the routing strategy, which can be the first available gateway or load balancing. When load balancing mode is selected, you can select the load balancing method used and you can use a round robin. okay, which distributes connection to each gateway in the turn. Alternatively, you can choose a section resistance type to route the traffic through a same gateway, and you can choose between source IP address, destination IP address, source and destination IP address, and the connection. Something important here is that you can select up to 8 get, gateways, which can include custom gateways such as route-based VPN gateways. If you use load balancing, you can choose the weight of the distribution of traffic between the gateways. For example, you may want to do this if the connections are different speeds, but if all the gateways are assigned a weight of 1. The default SSL, the service level agreement selects the gateway with the best quality based on latency. You can change this to determine use jitter or packet loss to determine the link quality. For load balancing, the SLA can be used to select only gateways that meet the minimum quality configuration you select. That's the one, as I mentioned, you provide a granular options for monitoring link health. Know that when you have an SLA enabled for a profile, you cannot disable the health check. The health check can be performance using a ping or TCP. For one or two pooling targets, when TCP is selected, you must enter the port. For the pooling targets, you may want to change the proof destinations, either in the event that the gateway does not respond to ping, or to better test that the gateway is capable of routing through the destination network. If you are only testing the gateway, you are testing the interface closest to the firewall. This does not provide or prove that the outbound interface is also operational. You can also refine the health check by specifying the interval between checks, response timeout when to turn gateways off and on, and the sample size used for the SLA. Okay, for this one profile, you can immediately see which gateway has been selected. And you can also get the real-time status of gateways by clicking the clipboard icon. The graph icon will take you to the SD-WAN monitoring graph. This SD-WAN monitoring graph can be found in the monitored, analyze, and diagnostics and SD-WAN performance. There you can see the distribution of the connections and data between gateways, and this data can be resetted. You are if you are troubleshooting your SD-WAN profile configuration. And further down the page, the graphs provide current and historical data on latency, jitter, and packet loss of each of the gateways in the selected SD-WAN profile. The view of that can be changed to show graphs for live, last 24 and 48 hours, last week, or last month. Okay, about the traffic shaping. Okay, so if we use a traffic shaping, if you configure this traffic, we can admin or manage the bandwidth and prioritize the traffic of the network and reduce the impact of use or intensive use of the bandwidth. Sorry guys, give me a moment please. Sorry guys, sorry, I had an issue, but I'm here right now. Okay, so the traffic configuration it's mainly implemented to protect business continuity. Okay, with the increasing change of the use of the cloud services, it is important to prioritize and warranty the bandwidth of this critical application. Okay, another approach is to limit the bandwidth of high bandwidth applications critical to the business, such as transmissions at the load, and the traffic configuration is also a great tool to control the amount of bandwidth used by the guest networks, ensuring that they do not affect the most important commercial use. Okay, so to start to start using the traffic settings, You must first configure the general traffic settings. It is important to specify the configuration found in the Configure tab, System Service, and Traffic Configuration. This includes the total available one, which Sophos Firewalls needs to be able to allocate the bandwidth effectively. The total available one bandwidth is the sum of the maximum bandwidth of the one links. To see the bandwidth used, click on Show Bandwidth. Use the button of the page. The Optimize for Real-Time or VoIP IP option is prioritize real-time traffic as VoIP IP. If the active, the priority will only be applied to access bandwidth that is to the remaining bandwidth after the warranted the allowing of the bandwidth. If the automate for real time is enabled, the real time traffic as VoIP will have a priority, especially the rest of the traffic. As I mentioned, you specifically if the sum of the limit, the maximum allowed of the traffic configured policies in real time is greater than the total amount limit, then the warranty bandwidth um, of this, the warranty bandwidth of the policies in real time, but it's possible that the bandwidth of not real not obtain the bandwidth minimum warranty. To apply um, the warranty bandwidth settings should only be enabled if you want to apply the default policy shown here to all traffic that does not have an explicit traffic configuration policy applied. If this option is enabled, you should also have the time to configure the default policy. Enforce the warranty bandwidth handles all internal bound traffic by the traffic shaping policy applied to it. If there is no policy applied to the traffic, it will be handled by the default policy. If you have enabled enforced warranty bandwidth, you can configure the default policy to use for traffic that does not have a traffic shaping policy applied. The warranty is the minimum bandwidth available to the user. The limit is the maximum bandwidth available to the user, and the priority can be set from 1 highest to 7 lowest, depending on the traffic required to the shaped. The traffic configuration policies are configured in the Configure tab, Settings, Service, and Traffic Shaping. The traffic configuration can be applied to users, rules, web categories, or application, and can be used to limit and warranty bandwidth. You can choose to set bandwidth limits for uploading and downloading separately on or in combinations. The priority files is used to set a type of file of traffic to which bandwidth priority will be assigned. By default, priority is assigned to real-time traffic. When the real-time traffic is prioritized, the ability for the non-real-time policies to receive their warranty bandwidth is determined by the remaining bandwidth in the time available bandwidth after real-time policies has been serviced. Okay? The bandwidth usage can be configured to be individual or shared. The individual policies, the individual applies the policy to single users, firewall rules, web category, or application shared applied to the policy to all users. Um, these are some of the rule types. Limit user cannot access the defined bandwidth limit. Warranty, the user is warranty the specific bandwidth and can use the bandwidth up to the specific limit if available, allowing users to the additional bandwidth can ensure consistent service levels during peak period. This is an example of policies. There we have a policy to limit the bandwidth of streaming media applications to 20. As you can see here, let me show you. This is the limit based on their web category as determined by the firewall. We have set up association in the web categories and the rule type in limit. We then calculate the bandwidth needed for the video for 480p to 1000 GBs and set it as an individual limit. So each person watch a video will have enough bandwidth to watch the video of 480p. Okay, finally the priority is set low, and we have chosen the priority of 5 to make sure it's processed after any business critical application. Okay, so traffic settings can also be applied to web categories in the protect web and then to categories. When editing the category, you can select the traffic configuration policy to apply and that at that web category regardless of the matching firewall rule. So about the base firewall, this is the last topic for today. Okay, so what do we have here? To allow network traffic in and out of the network through a firewall, you usually need two things: a firewall rule and a NAT rule. When you start configuring a firewall and NAT rules in Sophos Firewall, there are three key things to remember. First one, rules are processed in order from top to bottom. The first rule is used to match, and if there is no matching firewall rule, the traffic is deleted. The default placement rule cannot be edited and does not lock traffic. If you want to lock lost traffic, you must create a location firewall rule that matches all traffic and enable logging. This rule must be at the bottom of the rule set. And for NAT rules, if there is no matching rule, nothing will not be applied to traffic. Unlike the firewall rules, traffic is not blocking when it does not match any NAT rules. Okay, so let's start by looking at how to create a basic firewall rule. Here you can see how to create a firewall rule that allows web traffic from computers on the network of the internet, okay, to the internet. To start, we only have to go to protection, rules and policies, and then an add new rule, as you can see it here in the screen. In the top section, you can configure properties including rule positions, group, action, and whether to log rule traffic. By default, Sophos Firewall will attempt to place the rule in the most property group based on the configuration of the sources and destination zone and the type of firewall rules. The matching criteria of the Sophos Firewall cover source and destination zones and the network services and the ability to schedule when the rule will be active. You can also match users and groups. For the time being, we will focus on the configuring a network firewall rule. You can exclude specific zones, traffics, and services so that they do not match the firewall's rules. This simplifies the creation of firewall rules where there are exceptions, as you can create single generic rule and add exception, whereas multiple rules will be needed if exclusions were not available. And you can create a net rules that are linked to firewall rules. Here you only need to configure the source NAT as all the sources destination and services will have the same matching criteria as the firewall rule. Linked NAT rules are primarily designed to ensure a smooth migration from previous version of Sophos Firewall, where NAT configuration was completed as part of the firewall rule. To get the most out of Sophos Firewall, we recommend that you do not create a new linked NAT rules. Okay, so we will cover here creating a NAT rules shortly. At the end of the firewall rule, you can enable security features and select policies for web filtering. I don't know, security herbit, APS, application control, all the security that you want to apply, okay? Now that you have seen how to create a firewall rule, please see how to manage the firewall rules. It's not only created, okay? It's to manage it too. You can view key details such as source, destination, and service for each of the firewall rules. And when a file is truncated, you can hover your mouse over it to see the full content. On the right, you can see which features have been enabled within the firewall rule. And if you hover over this, you can see a full summary of the rule. There are two numbers of each firewall. The first is the position of the firewall, okay, of the rule. And this will be updated if you move a rule, which can be done by drawing and dropping them, okay? The second is the rule ID. Sorry. The rule ID. This is the unique reference of the rules and will not change. The important thing to note is that the rule ID does not reflect the position of the rule. They can be and usually will be different. You will notice that firewall rules use different icons, okay? Green icons for allows firewalls, for allows rules, and red for drop or reject, and raise for disable. Each icon also shows what type of rule is this. Okay? So it's important to know this type of icons and what means each icon. The web server protection rules for protect the web servers. Network rule when traffic is matched only on network properties, and the user rule where the Sophos firewall also matches on user identity. You can see here rule position, rule ID. The red octagonal for drop reject rule. This is important. Web server protection firewall rule. I mentioned you for protecting web servers. Then the network rule where traffic is matched. Okay, and the rule group or user group. And green for disable rules, user rules, and green for allowed rules. At the top of the firewall rules are common filters that can be applied using the drop-down menus. You can also add more detailed filters based on any file in the firewall rule if you prefer. On the right side of each rule, it's an ellipsis menu that provides additional controls, including reset the data counter of the rule, which can be useful for troubleshooting, for example. I don't know, move the rule to a specific position, rule cloning, add a new rule above or below it, and add the rule to a group or separate it from a group, and eliminate eliminate a available or enable or disable a rule, for example. Too. When we discuss creating a firewall rule, we said that Sophos Firewall will try to add a rule to the most appropriate group based on the settings you select. To add a new group, use the ellipsis menu option. Here you can configure the matching criteria that will be used to assign rules and groups automatically. You can create a linked NAT or source NATing from the firewall rule settings. However, this is primarily designed to support configuration migration from version 17.5, okay, other versions. We recommend that you configure NAT rules independently by using the NAP table to support more efficient and flexible configuration scenarios, including SNAT and DNAT, and a single rule. And NAT rules still require a firewall rule to allow the traffic. You typically need fewer NAT rules that firewall rules. So creating them separately allows you to simplify your configuration. In simple environments, you may only need a single general outbound masking rule instead of configuring it individual in each firewall rule. On the NAT tab, let me see something. Okay, so on the NAT tab, you can manage the NAP rule set, reorder the rules and see how many connections each of the rules has transferred. From the meaning of each rule, you can reset the using counter and for linked NAT rules, unlink them from their associated firewall rule. When adding the NAT rules, you can create a NAT rule or coordinate scenarios. Use the server access wizard to create both the firewall rule and the NAT rules. There is also a button at the top of the page for a video explanation NAT settings in the tip. Okay? A tip in more details. Within the NAT rule, matching criteria are configured on the original resources, destination, and service, and any translations that need to be performed. This design allows you to configure resources, destinations, service, and interface NATing in a single rule. You can also match the incoming and outgoing interface by enabling the override source translation option for specific output interfaces, and you can select different sources NAT based on the output interface, all within a single rule. Okay, so at the bottom of the NAT rule, you can choose to create a loopback policy. Okay, that is when the internal users wants to access an internal service using their public hostname or IP address. The truthful policy allows traffic to pass through the NAT in the positive direction. The advanced section contains the load balancing settings for the NAT rule, and this can be configured when the destination is an IP range. So let's consider an example scenario where we want to perform a masked SNAT on all traffic leaving 1 port 2. We can create a single NAT rule for this. So here, here we can see the default SNAT rule that satisfies the scenario. The rule matches the output interface and applies the mask QNAT directive to the source address. The mask queue is the default masking policy and will change the resource IP address to the same as the interface through which the which the traffic exists. Okay? About the TLS decryption on Sophos Firewall. The TLS inspections engine, Sophos Firewall, is port and sorry. Let me see again what happened. Yeah. Okay. Sorry guys. Let me return. Okay. The TLS inspection engine is port, as I mentioned you, an application independent. It does not know or care about the top level application being used. The TLS policy for the inspection engine is independent of the firewall rules, allowing you to create and apply policies to traffic without the complexity of having to consider the order and matching of firewall rules. This sends the encryption package to APS, application control, web control, and antivirus for the verification. Here you can see a set of TLS inspection rules. Okay? The first one includes different sites. Okay? So the first one includes a specific website from being decrypted and used to list a local list where you can add websites to include a Sophos managed list of websites where we know that SSL inspection causes problems. An example of when this can happen is when there is mutual authentication by the server and the client or application. These two list of websites can be seen in the protection tab, then going to web URL groups, and in the case of the TLS list, you can edit it. Okay, so these TLS rules can be configured to decrypt matching traffic when you want to scan the content, not decrypted uh, matching traffic when it will cause problems with the site or application, or deny matching traffic. Each rule has a decryption profile that is a collection of certificate, protocol, and cipher settings, and we will look at decryption profiles in more detail shortly, okay? The matching criteria for TLS rule is the same as the firewall rules, but with the addition of being able to match on categories of websites. Here I have created rules as an example, which do the following. Apply restrict decryption for users in finance. Apply a more relaxed and compatible policies to specific domains that require it, and decrypt all other internal to external traffic and block insecure SSLs. As an example, we create a general TLS inspection rule for traffic going to the WAM zone from the client network. Start by giving the rule a descriptive name, set the position of the rule, and set the action. Select a decryption profile that defines the CAS, that wife acceptable ciphers, and how to handle under cryptable traffic. Configure the resource and destinations settings in the same way that you will for a firewall rule, and in this case, to select the traffic from clients in the internet too, you can optionally further restrict the rule to apply it or to a specific website. Okay? From the top of the TLS, you're gonna open the TLS inspection settings. These are generic engine-based configurations that will apply globally to all rules. Okay? There are three sections here. Okay? So, the certification authorized that will be used to WISE, EARTH, SA, and EC certificates. How to handle non-decryptable traffic. This ensures traffic that does not support TLS decryption. Or what to do if Sophos Firewall reaches its connection limit. The connection limit is fixed value based on the firewall model, TLS port, and fairly new. And note widely adopted. So there is the option to decrypt as TLS 1.3 or downgrade to TLS 1.2. Decryption profiles are a collection of settings that are applied on a rule by rule basis. Three default decryption policies are provided. First one is the insecure block. Okay, this one. This insecure block, this blocks known weak protocols and encrypted. The maximum complexity. This is the most relaxed uh, profile and focus on the trying to ensure that restrictions do not cause any accepted problems. And the strict compliance, it's for people who need to comply with restricted compliance standards such as the PCA. You can also create your own custom encryption profiles, either from scratch or by cloning an existing profile. There are three main sections in this profile. Sorry. The resigned, the certification, this authority, which you can use the CAS defined in the SSL TLS configuration or can be overridden. Okay, the undecryptable traffic where you can specify uh, a different set of action from the SSL TLS configuration and applications rules where you can block specific protocols, encryptions, and certificate errors. Can be used to apply security settings to meet compliance criteria. Okay? So, so guys, we saw the different um, topics that we had for today. That was overview, getting a start, base firewall, and the deployment. Okay, so next date, I think that is the next Tuesday. Yeah, the next Tuesday, we will see the other topics. It's important that you can follow each topic to know what is about and what is the information that you have to know to make this certification. Okay, it's really important. Every part we try to make a summary of all the content, all the information, because it's a lot of information, but we try to make a summary. And it's important that you can assist to to each um to each training. Okay, today was the first day, so I will see you the next Tuesday. Please, if you have any questions, let me know. I will try to, in each training, I try to be as clear as possible, but you can let me know if you have any additional questions. Um, some of the people have my phone number, so please let me know by a text message or WhatsApp. I don't know. Doesn't matter. I will try to help you. Okay. So thanks, guys. Have a good day. I will see you the next time. Okay, the next Tuesday. Bye bye.